Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PowettPlay Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Shannon. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Kieran Powell, and today we have a special guest. We are joined by the Managing Director of England's Barmy Army, Chris Millard. How are you, Chris?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be on.
No, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and join us both, really. So, in terms of obviously starting out, what a bit more about the Barmy Army, how it all started, just approaching 30 years.
Yeah, so it's a pretty incredible story from from the humble beginnings of backpacking in 1994, 1995, where the three co-founders went over there to support England on an Australia tour. Clearly, I'm not one of the co-founders due to my age. But yeah, we've been going 30 years. The three co-founders went out there to support the team, and
Yeah.
they were, as they were going along, they were starting to gain themselves a bit of a reputation, because there was this group of 50 strong or so England fans that were following the England team around and singing songs no matter how the England team were doing. So it was almost the worse that the England team were performing, the more people there were singing the songs. And as they didn't do so well against Australia on that tour, more people joined to support the team. And they printed a few T-shirts as the press branded them, the Barmy Army, the Australian press.
Right.
They printed some T-shirts, and then at the next Test match in Perth, I think it was, they sold a couple of thousand T-shirts, and there the Barmy Army was born.
Oh,
they went on to trademark the name in the UK and Australia, and 30 years later, it employs 20 people full time and has 50,000 members, 2 million social media followers. So it's
I've got the Australian press to thank for that.
Yeah, we can thank them for very little, but that's one of the
So when did your involvement, as part of, I know you was initially involved in the marketing side of things, I believe, and then obviously now as a managing director, how did your career start with the Barmy Army?
Yeah, so I was in 2015. I was doing a work placement from university, and I was at university with Billy Root, Joe Root's brother, very close family friends with the Root family. And Billy told me that we'd been chatting to Joe, and we had a chat. And Billy said, "Why don't you go and do some work for the Barmy Army?" I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you can work for the Barmy Army." I thought they were just fans that sung songs, but as we found out through Joe's introduction by his dad, Matt Root, we found out that the Barmy Army was its own little business with a membership and also a travel company. So I went and did some work experience. When I left university in 2016, I went in as a unpaid marketing assistant for a few months to earn the stripes, and then finally got a salary through the business and started to build a plan to take it over and try and move it forward with my vision that I had at the time.
And is that something that so how did it come about in terms of obviously that next step in terms of from a managing director perspective?
Yeah, it was a pretty mad journey, to be honest. It was, I was working for Paul Burnham, was the old MD and founder, still on our board. He was running the business at the time. He was had been running it for 14 or so years, and I think he was a little bit tired of doing so. There was a moment in time where I felt the business was stagnating a little bit, and the membership wasn't growing, the social media wasn't growing, the team that we had down in London weren't really engaged with the direction of the business. We were just ticking over. So I asked Paul if he'd welcome a proposal from me. Built a proposal with a mentor of mine at age 23 and said, it's pretty radical. It was involved Paul retiring, making me the managing director, and moving the business from London, from Paul's house to Sheffield to be close to me and my family. So to my surprise, the board said yes. And then the talking had to stop, and I had to deliver on what I said I was going to deliver on. And I guess, what are we now? I've been working for the business 10 years, being the MD for just under 8 years. It's so far so good.
Oh, fantastic. In terms of obviously the proposal moving forward, you mentioned there about the change in social media. Was that really like the big step that moving forward, that you had to get the reach and you had to increase that membership, which is obviously so important for a supporters group effectively?
Yes and no. I think intrinsically, the Barmy Army is about people and it's about community. It is about cricket. Clearly, that everyone is a cricket fan, but it's more about belonging to a community and being part of something.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing we did was really look at why people were part of the Barmy Army and what they valued, and it was that sense of community and sense of belonging. So, what we needed to do was really engage with them and rebuild the trust that we were going to offer a service that was worth being part of and worth belonging to. So the first thing we did was to rebrand. It was quite radical, but it was to remove the St. George's Cross from the brand, because at the time there was a lot of politicalisation around the flag, and things you don't want to be associated with were unfortunately associated with the flag. And I think that shifted again since. I don't think that those connotations are still as powerful, but we rebranded and we tried to make a brand for the future that was digital and something we could take forward. And then we looked at what it meant to be a Barmy Army member. So the values, the rules, the reputation. We've had less people kicked out in 30 years of cricket stadiums than the MCC had kicked out at Lord's in the Ashes.
That's hard to believe from some of the behaviour I've seen.
So that's the thing, that the behaviour is fun, it's energetic, it's loud, but ultimately it's very respectful and very friendly. It's very passionate, and clearly we try and self-police and we try and work with whoever we're playing against to make it a really inclusive feel. We always get asked, do you want a Barmy Army block? So in the West Indies, for example, they'll say, where do you want to be situated? And we'll say, well, we want as many tickets as we can in the party stand because we want to just completely mix and integrate with the culture.
Yeah.
That community sense of belonging. And then the final one was data. It was, right, how do we create a brand for the future? How do we build on the next generation? How do we integrate the next generation of the Barmy Army? And that was through social media and growing that membership number again.
Kieran, with your comment there, what's it like to play against England with the Barmy Army there?
I mean, you try as best as possible not to take it on, but I think from a player's standpoint, the later in the day it gets, obviously, the louder they get as the beers get guzzled down. But I think it's something that I'd like to see happen more across the cricketing landscape, because I think it's obviously something that's renowned in the world of football, where you have traveling supporters, etc. Cricket, obviously, I mean, India has a huge following wherever they go, and so is the Barmy Army going around the world. And I think that it's quite refreshing to see fans, really supporting the team through thick and thin. So I think it's a great experience. They're all light-hearted, obviously they have their fun with the players when they're feeling on the boundary and stuff, but it's not ill intended or anything like that. It's really good. So I really enjoyed it.
No, good. In terms of obviously like the traveling that you do and the tours and things that you arrange, how hard has it been to try and maintain regular tours, but with this sort of massive increase in the schedule? So, with it being like two separate teams at the minute, especially with a white ball and red ball, if you're constantly trying to get one, to try and get the interest, but I assume the interest is always going to be there, but two, to obviously then manage constantly, potentially two tours at once or various other bits and pieces that are going on.
It's a great question, and it's something that I went to World Cricket Connects, where which was hosted by the MCC, where a lot of people within the game met, a big conference on the future of cricket, essentially. And the biggest problem cricket has, as we all know, is the schedule, and unfortunately, it's becoming increasingly likely problem to potentially put fans off the sport and push them away from the sport, because the schedule is so difficult to follow. You've got fans that want to support franchise cricket, but are ultimately international cricket fans as well. Yeah. And if the fans are fans follow teams, but they also follow players, right? So there is no doubt that taking players away from international cricket for franchise cricket will affect the viewing numbers of international cricket. Yeah. And it's not a decision that the players should have to make. The ICC and the people that govern the game have to do a better job of looking after the players, because unfortunately, No player wants to say no to international cricket, but at the end of the day, it's a career and it's a job. Who's going to turn down better family prospects for the future to protect their own income and their wealth? Now, the ICC can do something about that, and they have to do something about protecting the players so they don't have to make decisions they don't want to make. They want to be able to play franchise cricket and international cricket. Brilliant. Yeah. That's what fans want to see. So if we all have a conversation together, how do we make the schedule work best for everyone? Yeah. And how do we better govern franchise cricket? The game will be better off, whether that's for a spectator, whether that's for a player, whether that's for a broadcaster who wants to make money off the back of it as well. So unfortunately, it's a little bit disorganized at the minute. It needs reform, and it needs reform quickly to make sure that the future of the game is protected and the players are protected and the players' future brand is protected from decisions they don't want to have to make.
Yeah. Because one of the things I was going to mention as well is that obviously before we are going to speak about Australia and the Ashes, etc. But one thing that's quite discussed as we've been talked about is obviously the positive impact that you have on an economy when you go traveling, and the more that gets saturated of the impact that may have. So in terms of obviously like when you go to the Caribbean, did you see an impact in the white ball tour that was just before, not the Christmas just gone, the Christmas before, versus when you previously been?
Yeah, we had half the numbers of people travelled on the last tour because it was a tour that followed a tour the year before to the same places.
Yeah.
Now the Caribbean is probably our second, between the Caribbean and South Africa, for our second destination after Australia.
Right.
However, to put 2 white ball series consecutively year on year made it very difficult for us to sell that, because ultimately there's only so much money people have and only so much time they can have off. If you're making them choose between potentially going twice or saving for Australia, they're going to save for Australia. So it's back to the schedule. Like over the past 2-3 years, we'll have been to the Caribbean twice for 2 white ball series and a World Cup, so 3 times.
Yeah.
Pakistan twice for 2 test series and New Zealand twice for 2 test series. We've played no test cricket in the West Indies, Sri Lanka or South Africa.
Which is also a well-travelled place, obviously, like you mentioned,
As a business, you're talking about millions of revenue lost for cricket travel companies due to the schedule. So it's been challenging, but the future is very bright. I think that the future can be very positive. We've got what's ahead is amazing. We've got Australia, Sri Lanka, South Africa to come, and then hopefully a West Indies test series as well. So we're really positive. We think that the future can be great, but the schedule is whether it's for players or fans, it's the most important thing that cricket has to get right.
And you said there obviously about what's around the corner, and the Ashes is around the corner. At what point do you start the planning for a big tour like that?
Oh, we've been planning the Ashes for 18 months already. So it's a 2.5 year planning process. I was there in October. I'm going back in July. My colleagues are there in April. It's so big for us. We've already sold 2,130 packages, and that is people that are coming on the organised official travel package. We've got people that travel independently, and that'll be upwards of 30,000 independent fans that probably travel over for it. And then you've got the expat community that are in Australia. We've already got our Brisbane Barmies banging on the door saying they want 1,000 tickets per day. So we're looking at our event schedule, and we genuinely think we can be filling out 3,000 to 5,000 event venues for our major events over there. So it's a big job. It's a big tour. We'll have anywhere between 35 and 50 staff working for the Barmy Army on that tour. Wow. To maximise the experience and look after our members. So it's a massive old project that has taken a lot of planning, but when we're over there and it is as big and as good as it hopefully can be, it's going to be a very exciting time and a very exciting project to be a part of.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, Kai, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I've just got an interesting question for Chris. Obviously, with this whole talk about the two-tiered system floating about now, and then you just mentioned, obviously, you haven't toured certain countries. How do you think that will affect you going forward? Obviously, sort of curtailing options in terms of where you can and possibly will be going in the future.
Massively. It's very worrying, the fact that we might be restricted from playing anything but white ball cricket in
The
the
Caribbean, for
Caribbean,
example.
for example. Yeah, and that's not only massive for cricket but tourism. Like GDP on the islands in the Caribbean it has a considerable increase when English cricket tours there. In 2019, $80 million was put into circulation in Barbados in 1 week of England playing cricket there, in addition to that their current tourism income. So it's not just a cricket issue; it's a tourism issue, and one of the best things about cricket is the diversity and the multicultural nature of the sport. That's why people love it. That's why fans love touring and watching the game. And I just think the people that govern the game have to have half an eye on how impactful the game is and looking after the game, rather than just thinking it from purely a broadcast perspective. Because whilst the two-tier system might make sense in terms of how to create how Test cricket can make money, let's look broader than just how the product makes money. What impact does that have on said destination at a time? We go. I'll use Barbados as an example because it's usually the biggest tour in a Caribbean tour. We'll go there and we'll genuinely have like bars and restaurants coming up to us saying, "We're so happy you guys are back."
Yeah.
Every 4 years, this has such a positive effect on our bar, and it sustains us for a period of time, and that's amazing. Yeah. And that's also what the fans love doing. They love feeling like they're part of something that has such a big impact. So, Kieran, if I'm honest, I'm really worried about it, and I hope it's just a rumor, and I hope it doesn't come into fruition. And I hope that the ECB, Richard Gould, will be fighting the corner of England fans as well.
Yeah, because you look at, as you said, the impact that it has, not only in the Caribbean, I think everywhere that the Barmy Army goes, there's obviously a financial windfall. You're talking about tourism, you're talking about every aspect of a country, a country and a culture getting impacted by the touring fans. I'd love to think it's the same for somewhere even like Pakistan now, with the Champions Trophy going on and English fans going out to Pakistan in mass for a global tournament like this, which hasn't happened in eons as far as I can remember, as far as I've been watching cricket, and I don't think that the game is short of money, because there's a ICC tournament pretty much every year now. The ICC sanctioned every T20 league that comes up in any part of the world. So I don't think that they should necessarily be looking to, I guess, look at Test cricket as a way of continuing to grow revenue, but as opposed to growing the game. I think they need to make it more competitive and find ways in making the weaker nations more competitive. So I fully agree with you there, and I think that that's something that I hope that the boards vote for, in terms of not going for the two-tier system, because I think that would sort of be the death of international cricket in a way and lead cricket towards franchise-centric cricket. And then you have something like the Barmy Army, which is an international followers company that will sort of be having to change route to being like, say, the London Spirit fan group or something.
That's the thing for us as well. We think we can play a part in helping the future of international cricket. We can try and develop the similar concepts for countries that don't have a Barmy Army. So we helped the Barrett Army set up, when they set up the India version of what we do. We can offer we know the model, we know the commercial business model, how it makes money, and we also know how to generate that following initially. So we really do want to play a part in protecting the future of the game, because we feel like we can add value and help. And we're trying to have those conversations with the right people to make it happen.
Yeah. You mentioned before about tickets for the Ashes and obviously the demand and things like that. Do the grounds in Australia, are they of help? Do they encourage you attending in the numbers that you do, or are they difficult about sort of like that many England fans being in the grounds?
Cricket Australia are one of the best governing bodies to work with in the game. They are brilliant. They're forward thinking. They get it. They understand that there is a commercial model behind it, but they also understand that it's about generating support. It's about generating an atmosphere and generating something that is better for ultimately, if the Barmy Army is coming to a cricket match, it adds value to the game for the players, for the broadcasters, for the people in the stadium. So they get it, and they're ahead of the times, and they really want to work with us. And Nick Hockley, the CEO of Cricket Australia, is brilliant. Great guy. He's English, I must add. So so maybe he's helping us support in a better way than for other reasons. But Nick's been fantastic for me and for the business. So yeah, can't speak highly enough of Cricket Australia. Can't speak that highly of the team though. Otherwise, I'd be in the wrong job, wouldn't I?
With that in mind, how frustrating was it in times that you wasn't allowed probably in, at the home of cricket at Lords?
It was frustrating. I think it was I inherited this from the guys that used to run the Barmy Army. It was almost they tried a few times and the MCC just didn't want the Barmy Army to be there, and they passed it off as we don't accept fan groups inside Lords. And it was, again, back to Nick Hockley and Cricket Australia, it was Nick that challenged that with the MCC and said it's taking value away from the Ashes not having the Barmy Army at one of the games. He got me in front of Richard Gould to try and put the ball in motion, and the year later we were in the ground. So Nick, I've got Nick to thank for getting us through the door, because he saw the value. And yeah, I'm pleased to say that the Barmy Army were at Lords last year for the first time, and it went tremendously well. And we've sold out our allocation for this summer's fixtures at Lords as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. And are the UK grounds helpful with as well?
Yeah, fantastic. We've got relationships dating back for a long time with the key people at the grounds there that work in the ticket office. So we got on really well with them. We've pleased to say we get allocations every ground in the world, and we work closely with them. I think days of people thinking the Barmy Army isn't a well-organised, well-run operation are now behind us. So the brand now has credibility, and we have a little bit of pull with people. They know that we're going to be good customers ultimately and make sure that everyone within our section is well behaved, but also pays on time, and we look after them.
Yeah, no, that's it's a good point. It's good that they're helpful as well, because I can imagine sometimes as well, like it's been not as always smooth sailing as it probably has been over, the 30 years, which is a benefit to you guys.
Yeah, it has. It really has. I think there's the evolution, because the brand's been around so long, and because I think the good work we've done on social media and the money that we raise for charity, I keep banging that drum about credibility and making sure that people know that we are good for the game. And the days that people think we're just football fans singing songs and shouting it behind us, if I'm being honest, the singing of the songs is only a small part of what the Barmy Army does. That's what people see on the tellies. That's what the players hear. That's what the fans hear. But I know it will surprise you, but we have dual allocations nearly every ground in the world for the Barmy Army members that like to sing and want to be next to the trumpet player. But we've also got quite a lot of members that want to be sat on the other side of the ground, away from the singing and away from the music. They just like the Barmy Army, like what we stand for, like our culture, but they don't want to be singing. They're not those sorts of people. We've got everyone in our organisation, from an 82-year-old widow who's travelled on 29 consecutive tours with us because she trusts us. When you say Barmy Army and you see the Barmy Army on the telly, you wouldn't think of her, but she's one of our most loyal members. So it's a very unique place, and it's back to that word, community. That's what it is. Yeah,
definitely. With it being 30 years, have you got any big plans to celebrate?
Yeah, we have, absolutely. We've got a Barmy Army dinner at Edgbaston, so we'll do a Barmy bingo, which is a big party version of bingo. We've got Paul Collingwood and Mark Wood attending with us. We've got a little surprise for everyone on the night as well. We've been working on a little project that we're going to unveil on the night. So the 30th dinner is the main celebration on the 28th of March, on the Friday in Birmingham. but then also we see this as our 30th year. So the start of the Ashes will be the big celebration of the 30 years of the Barmy Army. There will be plenty of reference points during that tour to being 30 years old and celebrating in style.
Which is when you look back, which from your involvement perspective, which is like a tour that stood out where you feel like you've had a big influence on a game, really?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the one that always springs to mind is 2019 South Africa. It was just before then, there was a lot of debate around 4-day test cricket, and it was the Cape Town test. And it was a very tight series. And we went into the 5th day and either team could have won. And England were ahead. They had South Africa 9 down with about half an hour left to play. Yeah. Jimmy Anderson was bowling. And I think for that, they were probably 7 down just after tea. And for that, pretty much the whole session, we didn't stop singing. And the whole stand, all England fans were singing, if they were Barmy Army or not, just to get behind the team, to get them over the line. And with about 10 minutes to play in the last half an hour, they took that final wicket. And the players just ran straight over to the Barmy Army and were like, that was because of you. That was for you. Yeah. That was because of you. And they were all singing along with us at the end. It was like, I know they say like saying you're the 12th man. It's a very common phrase, but that moment actually felt like we had an impact on the game. And but if I'm honest, I never like to take any credit because ultimately the players are the reason for the success of the team, and we're there to just support them and try and give them as much encouragement as possible. And they did an amazing job in winning that test match.
I thought you were gonna say that that game when you were in Australia and they were saying Mitchell Johnson bowls to the left, he bowls to the right.
I mean, that was probably the most that the Barmy Army's ever got on top of a player and actually affected the performance. Like you could, for him to get a golden duck that day as well, like clear evidence that and he said it in interviews, it really did get to him and it did affect him. So I guess, I don't like to talk about it in the negative. When it affects people's careers, that's not cool. But I think if you're talking about the Ashes and the rivalry, to have helped England, I'm sure a lot of people would be very happy with that. And Mitchell Johnson came back to bite us, didn't he, a few years later? So
certainly did.
We can't say. I'm a bit worried actually because we're doing something with the Australia Tourism Board, and that we might be playing at the Wacker the day before the Test match starts, and I'm a little bit worried that they're going to get Mitchell Johnson to bowl and get his own back.
I didn't enjoy that. I'm pretty sure you won't either.
Have you got any advice for me?
Don't play that game. Just get sick somehow.
Injured.
But no, I think something that's intrigued me more so than anything, and Jordan can profess to this, is obviously Steve Smith, his ability to concentrate, especially in an Ashes series. I mean, he's got ridiculous numbers. Yeah. I think you guys should just go absolutely mute because he's expecting verbals, and that seems to drop. You guys have to go mute because he seems to be back in that top tier Steve Smith zone at the moment.
Yes. I think you're right. After the whole sandpaper scandal, when they came to England for that Test series, it was very loud. Like I was like, whoa, this is heavy. But he just got better. It was like,
yes.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. But you try and keep England fans quiet when Steve Smith walks out to bat. It is impossible.
Yeah.
I wanted to get at him.
He's next level. I think obviously you guys have got to try and get him up. But if he gets on a roll, he can sort of change the series by himself. So good luck with that.
It's going to be an interesting series though, because there'll be a lot of the guys are getting, both the Aussies and the English boys are all getting a little bit older, aren't they, and a little bit more wily in their game. So it's going to be an incredible series.
Yeah, 100%.
And with that, at the start of the show, you did mention obviously your friendship with Joe Root. I think with the target assassins tally is something that's been talked about a lot. You're probably going to agree with this, but it's a matter of when rather than if. And obviously the series in Australia, can you get that 100, which it looks like it's going to happen this time around.
Yeah, I was unpopular amongst my mates, but I was saying might not be a bad thing that Joe didn't get 100 in the last Australia series when there was no fans there and it was COVID, because it will definitely inspire him on to get 100 in Australia next time around. So yeah, I'm very confident he'll get to Sachin's record as long as they play enough Test cricket between now and the time he's in his late 30s. So he's still as hungry as ever. He just loves cricket.
Yeah,
Kieran, I'm sure you'll have played with him, played against him, and you can probably vouch for how much he just loves playing cricket. So if you've got that right, you're ahead of a lot of people that have played the game for a long time. So I'm confident, but we never know with professional sport, do you, what's around the corner. So it'd be incredible, wouldn't it, if he beats Sachin's record?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think he's the only person that's capable of breaking. I don't think if he doesn't do it, then it's never going to be broken again. So it would be good to see it broken in our lifetime.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it'd be nice for India to not have a record as well.
Exactly.
With that.
I mean, I was looking at the Champions Trophy and saw Virat got 14,000 runs, and then I realized Sachin's got almost 19,000. I was like,
it's crazy, isn't it? His numbers are ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I wanted to ask you one thing, again, from my perception from the outside, is the relationship that the England players, past and present, have always had with the Barmy Army. And I think it's been really nice that, when you do go on tours, there is that mixing and that integration. I appreciate that some places are going to be harder than others, but ultimately, going on tour must feel really nice that you can mix with people who you're watching and people who you look up to and ultimately support, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a very unique thing, the relationship with the players, and cricket's a unique thing because you guys will know that when you're on a long test tour, or if you're in the Caribbean for 5 weeks and the team are there, and a lot of people do the full tour, you bump into the players in the hotels and the restaurants and the bars. You stay in the same hotels as a lot of cricket fans, and you do get to know them and you build relationships. And a lot of our members that have been traveling a long time have great relationships with the players now. And that, I think that's great. And that's so unique for the sport of cricket, because it just wouldn't happen in football or anything like that. There's such a line. And that's what makes cricket and being a cricket fan so fun and so unique. Don't get me wrong, there's times where you have to make sure that your tour managers are not they're not letting their fans go up to the players after a loss at breakfast and ask them questions. But most cricket fans know where the line is and respect that, and respect that these guys are professional athletes that need the space. So it's a very, very unique thing, and long may it continue, I say.
Yeah, definitely. You got anything more you want to add, Kai?
Oh no, I think it's been very interesting. I've always wondered what it was like, the insight of working with the Barmy Army. So it's been very, very fruitful.
There you go. Well, yeah, I've got a question for you, Kieran, about playing Test cricket and playing white ball cricket. From the fans' perspective, do you enjoy the fans that Test cricket is a bit quieter, a bit calmer, a bit more, the atmosphere is a bit of a slower build, or do you like the raucous nature of white ball cricket?
To be honest, I prefer Test cricket. It may seem like a slow build, but because you've got the entire day and you've got 5 days, it feels like more of a connection, if that makes sense. So okay, at this time of the day, it's going to start building up, and at the end of the day, you're going to have... So Test cricket gives you pretty much all elements of a fan experience. That's how I would put it. And it's similar to, I guess, cricket on a whole. I think Test cricket gives you the full scope of a game, as opposed to like a T20 game, you get sort of the back end of a test match. A one-day game, you get the middle end, whereas the Test cricket gives you the entire thing. So I think the Test cricket format provides the best format for me in terms of fan engagement, from a game, in terms of player perspective, etc.
Long may it continue then, eh?
Hopefully. It's honestly my favorite form of cricket, so hopefully.
Love that.
Definitely.
Love that.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. I really appreciate you taking your time out of your afternoon or evening to come and join us. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. Great to meet you both.
Lovely having you on, Chris.